Why do you think it is that you said the black community would be the last to leave the Democratic Party? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, even during the Republican primary, I spent a lot of time in the black community. I spent a lot of time in Democrat-controlled communities. And we would bring our laptops with us every single time we were going to one of these communities. And we were actively changing people's registration from Democrat to Republican. One of the things I saw is that there is truly just a lack of awareness. I think things like gas prices brings it home to people's kitchen table, and now they're paying attention to it. But other than that.
Real quick, did you see that video out of Florida? Where the two black guys are looking at the gas tanker coming after the hurricane, and the guy's like, I'm voting for DeSantis, and I'm a Democrat. He brought the gas, is all that matters.
Let me tell you, when I walked into black communities, in 2020, when we were having all these Black Lives Matter rallies, I was running for Congress. That was my first time jumping into the political fray. I'm now in a general election. I started attending Black Lives Matter rallies. No one would invite me. I would just walk up on stage, take the mic, and say, yeah, I'm black. What are you going to do about it? And I would say, my name is Kathy Barnette. I'm a Republican. Now get out of your emotions. And I would begin to talk to black people about right where they're standing. Black people want exactly what everyone else wants. We want safe streets. We want good schools. We want good jobs, right? We don't want to defund the police. Black people never came up with that idea. A white Democrat living behind a gated community came up with the idea of defund the police. Black people never come up with that. The problem is there's a litany of them, but one that we can control is the fact that Republicans don't go into those communities for a variety of reasons. We don't go in, we don't compete, we just leave it as a far gone conclusion that they're going to vote for Democrats. What I did during the primary, this primary that I just went through, is I started going into black communities, changing every single time, changing their voter registration from Democrat to Republican. They are open. It's just they're very unaware of the reality.
You mean you'd go in and talk to them about it, and then they would decide to switch?
And then they would decide, right. So I would go into these predominantly black communities, or I would go to an environment where I knew we were going to be bringing in a lot of black people who were Democrats, and I would stand up. Sometimes I would have 30 minutes to speak with them. The other 30 minutes, we would be changing voter registration from Democrat to Republican. Every single time I would clear the room, and I would get all of these people to change their voter registration. Why? I'm not going in plastic. I'm not going in with canned speeches. I'm talking about right where they're living. They want their children not to have to duck and dodge bullets just to get into their classroom. They want exactly what everyone else wants. We just got to go in, and we have the more compelling story. We just have to have the nerve to go in and do it.
How did the white hipsters at the BLM rally respond
to
you saying get out of your emotions?
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, every single time I had my own rally outside, Black Lives Matter would show up every single time, and there was not one black person in the bunch. It is nothing. I mean, these are some of the most racist, and that's not a word I throw around at all. I'm very careful about it. But I found more resistance and more hate from these progressive leftists. I don't even want to call them progressive, just these leftist Democrats, trying to tell me what it means to be black. I mean, just very bold and very in your face. And I found them to be very nasty. So
I too. I found them to be very nasty.
Racism's so insidious, because even when people are like trying to give you compliments and be nice racistly, they're like, black people are so beautiful. Like, it's like, dude, leave the racism at the door. Talk to me like a person.
Yes.
But this is what the left does. There's a Yale study, which I'm sure you saw, right? That Democrats talk down. Actually, there's two different ones. One is Democrats as a political party, they lower their vocabulary level when speaking to minorities, and liberals in general talk down in the same way. Conservative politicians and conservatives don't do this.
Yeah.
So did you see that one from a few years ago?
Yes, I did.
I'm sure you've experienced it.
I think it was a couple of years ago. Yeah, let me tell you something. I mean, every time I walk into a room, they'd be like, "Oh, she speaks so well."
Oh my
like, what
God,
do you?
come on.
You speak so well, right? I mean, I never saw anyone say that to another white person, but it was always kind of pointed at me. You speak English really well. Like, yeah, I'm an American.
Isn't that what Biden described Obama as?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
I think so.
He did.
I remember that.
Wow. Yeah, Biden said he went on and on about it.
I
That was
know,
crazy.
right? Like really good tea.
But I think Biden explicitly said about him being black.
Yeah, I think I'm looking it up right now. One of the texts he said was that he was articulate and clean.
Yes, that's the word. You're so articulate. And but that's just a part of the issue. I mean, like that's just, that's something you can just kind of give people a pass on. But when you look at the policies of the Democrat Party, every time I want to drive, again, I'm on my county of Bucks, Philadelphia. And when I want to go into center city of Philadelphia, I take the street versus the freeway, just so I can get, familiar with the different areas. And it just really rubs me raw when I know I just drove into the black community. You drive from one community to another community to another community, and you get into the black community, and it's trash everywhere. It's liquor stores everywhere. It's mattresses, multiple mattresses just sitting on the sidewalk. It's very irritating. And so Democrats' policies, they are showing up in some of the most horrific ways, primarily in Democrat, in black communities.
I will not read that quote from Joe Biden. I'm sorry. You guys, someone else that gets to read it. I'm not reading it. Who wants to read it?
I'll read it. I mean,
so read the full thing that Biden famously said.
Biden famously said in the New York Observer, I gotta get that glare off the screen. Quote, I mean, you got the first, Biden says, mainstream African-American who's articulate and bright, says Joe Biden, and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man. What's the storybook? That a black guy's cleaned up? Joe,
I respect,
racist freak? I love you, man. I'm just saying, leave the racism at the door.
I respect how you kept breaking the quote up by saying Biden says.
I don't want to think I'm the one saying this goofy.
Yeah, you don't get that clipped out.
But I mean, it's amazing that he said that. He had to apologize for it. But this, to me, scientific studies showing that Democrats talk down to black people, that they use lower grade language. Like that says everything.
Well, listen, Democrats hated me. And the reason why they hate me is because I don't need them. I don't need them to pay my bills. I don't need them to help me with anything. All I need them to do is get out of my way, right? And so, I mean, and that was the reality. That was my reality, my experience of just running all across Pennsylvania. But again, that was when I was in a general election in 2020. Now I came into a primary election in 2022, and now I'm running as a Republican in a Republican primary. And let me just tell you, the issue is not just with the Democrat Party. We do have this thing called a uniparty in our country, and Democrats cannot do half the things they're doing if Republicans in the establishment, the elites within the Republican Party, the machine, was not complicit.
Right, don't play ball.
What do you think about Democratic policy has altered the way you were saying when you get to the black community of Philadelphia that there's trash on the street, and why? What do you think policy-wise has caused that specifically?
Yeah. It's a broken culture. I mean, and I would go into, again, these predominantly black communities, especially during the Black Lives Matter riots of 2020. And I would ask them, I mean, you would be hard pressed to find a Republican anywhere in leadership, right? The only ones who were in leadership in these predominantly black communities were Democrats. And so you can't look at Republicans and say, oh, it's your fault that my trash don't get picked up. It's your fault that we have these particular school systems that are failing time and time and time again. Which party is constantly saying they don't want school choice? They don't want to give parents the ability to take a voucher. And if your school is not competing and not providing your children what they need, then you have as a parent, because you know your child better, then you as a parent can take that voucher and then take your child to a school where your baby will succeed. Which party is working against that policy? Democrats are working against that.
So just to kind of bring things into highlight, I wanted to really get your perspective, because other than just failed Democratic policies, what do you think is mainly responsible for areas like Philadelphia, for predominantly black areas to be in the current situation that they are right now?
Yeah.
What's the driving focus? Who's responsible?
Yeah. I mean, who's responsible? I mean, well, let me for me, I always start with myself, right? I mean, I was a Democrat. I grew up below the bottom rung of the economic ladder. I grew up on a pig farm in southern Alabama. I grew up in a home with no running water, no insulation, an outhouse in the back and a well on the side. When I say poor, we couldn't afford the other O. We were just po. But no one ever told me I was a victim, right? We didn't have much. But I saw my grandparents wake up early, go to bed late, taking care of their family, taking care of their community, right? And no one ever told me I was a victim. And so I went on to get an education. I went on to get married, to wait till I got married before I started having children. So you can learn these particular things. So before we start saying, oh, it's the white man's fault, or oh, it's that black man's fault, or oh, it's these people's fault, I always want to get the mirror and put it up in my own face and say, what can I do with my life? But now, once you get beyond that, right, because I can only control so much. I'm so grateful to God. I think it's going to become increasingly difficult for people who were like me, who find themselves the way I once was, underneath the rock. I think it's going to become increasingly difficult for those people to begin to climb their way out of that kind of poverty and create a new life for themselves. I believe the policies, I mean, you know, when you listen to Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, talk about destroying demand in order to get inflation in line, what he means by that, the way you destroy demand is by destroying people's lives. And you destroy people's lives by forcing them to be fired, right? Or creating an environment where jobs are not hiring, but firing, right? And I think that that kind of environment and that kind of mentality and leadership that we have today, who say instead of growing the economy by opening up oil and allowing ourselves to be energy independent, we don't have that kind of mentality. We have the kind of mentality that's leading this country that says we need to destroy demand by destroying jobs. Right? And when you find someone like myself who, you know, I mean, how do you get a job if there are no jobs, if there are no opportunities? So I think it's going to become increasingly difficult for people who find themselves at the bottom rung of the economic ladder to begin to create a new life for themselves.
When Tulsi Gabbard came out and said she was quitting the Democratic Party and that, you know, they're a cabal of elites and warmongers, I pulled up the Washington Examiner, conservative. Democrats are the party of the wealthy elites. Unheard, moderate, centrist. Democrats are the party of rich white elites. Then we pulled up Jacobin, socialist newspaper. Democratic Party keeps getting richer and whiter. If the right, the center, and the left are all saying the same thing, and it's still not enough for people to realize this is what the Democratic Party is. I then pulled up Vox.com, which is establishment corporate Democrat to the T. The Democrats have replaced the Republican Party as the party of the wealthy elites. How is it that there are people who still don't get it? That they still think that if you are poor and working class, vote for the rich people who don't care about you and want you to be cannon fodder. So I want to say this. There's a shout out to all of our good Gen Z fans. If you're Gen Z and you support the Democratic Party, then I'm proud to let you know that you will be prized cannon fodder when they reinstate the draft for their war against Russia. So congratulations. It will be you on the front lines. Now, if you are between the ages of 18 and 25, and realistically, we may be looking at a year or two out. So let's say 17 to 24. The best thing you can do right now, if you don't want to be forced to join the military, is probably oppose intervening in these foreign conflicts.
I was thinking about like 1930 Germany, and when the Nazi party came into power, and a lot of the German people were just like, I don't like them, but I love Germany. I'm pro Germany, so I'll support whoever's in charge at the moment. And I think a lot of people are like, I'm pro America, so I support the president and this party. But like, you really have a duty to revolt against nasty corruption. I do think that Biden putting his son in Burisma, that Ukrainian oil company, is corrupt.
Putting his son there,
I mean, he could have told him. He could have said no.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, maybe he didn't put him there. Maybe he didn't. But allowing that to happen is like, what in the hell?
Or not recusing himself from any dealings with Ukraine, being like, my son works for an energy company there, I can't be involved.
And the war stuff with like no backing down. It's like, if you don't find yourself supporting a government that wants to take you into a war, because there'll be you and your kids that have to die, it's not worth it.
Just to get back to the original conversation, because I think we were on some really good points here from the question that I asked that you kind of went on. And to answer your question, Tim, a lot of the times when people are in poverty, they have a lot of things to figure out. They have a lot of problems. And then here come these politicians promising, hey, we're going to help you guys. Hey, we're going to give you this. We're going to make sure everything's free and everything's going to be handled. Everything's going to be glorious. And then, of course, they win the election. Then they're like, screw you. We don't even care about you. And then we see that pattern routinely every 4 years. And I think personally, to kind of add to what you were just talking about, I think globalization that destroyed this economy and took away a lot of American jobs, along with the destruction of the modern man and family units, is predominantly one of the biggest reasons why people are impoverished, why people are going to continue to be impoverished. And I think a lot of these policies are being done deliberately, in my opinion, with the subjugation of humanity.
I want to tack on, unlike 1930 Germany, a lot of people have woken up to the crap. Like you guys were saying earlier in the show, the red pilling of America's now with this tax hikes, and you're learning about the military industrial complex, the liberal economic order, all this like information that's available on because of the internet in a lot of ways. I think that people are able to not blindly follow the warmongering leader.
Yeah, so much more information.
Yeah.
In the past.
I mean, but I'm kind of going back a little bit more. We're ping ponging over here, but most people define poverty in dollars and cents, but they don't. But if curing poverty was nothing more than a stimulus check, then Black people, among all people, well, all of our issues would be solved, right? When you begin to think about all the aid and all the government money, that certain communities get. So if dollars and cents was all that was needed in order to cure poverty, then hey, it'd be, it's simple and it would be over, because our government has given welfare to so many different groups of people. But it's more than that, right? Yeah. And it's a brokenness in culture, right? It's we're bankrupt in culture, and it's not just a Black thing any longer. I talk about it in my book that if my book came out in 2020, and I was kind of putting out this clarion call that if we don't get our head out of the sand and pay attention to what our leaders are saying, this bankruptcy and poverty that we think are confined in certain communities are going to begin to spread outside of those communities and begin to impact our little bungalows, right? And that's exactly what we're beginning to see.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.